On a Tuesday morning in October, I found a folder in a drawer I had never opened. My husband said it was work documents. It was 2 years of evidence he had built against me before I had done anything wrong. Her name is Naomi Chun, and she is 34 years old, and she has lived in the same apartment with the same man for 4 years. The apartment is on the 3rd floor of a high-rise, with pale gray walls and dark wood floors and windows that face the city. Ryan, her husband, 37, dark hair, hazel eyes, the kind of person who seemed predictable in a way she had always found reassuring, worked in financial consulting. He traveled occasionally. He was home most evenings. He was, by every visible measure, exactly the person she had thought she married. The drawer she had never opened was the bottom drawer of the desk in the second bedroom, the one they had always called the office, without either of them actually working in it much. She had opened it looking for a USB cable. What she found instead was a manila folder, slightly worn at one corner, held closed with a rubber band. She almost didn't look inside. She told herself later that she almost didn't look, and she has gone back to that moment many times. The moment when she could have put it back, not known, let the drawer close, let the Tuesday continue. She looked inside. The first thing she saw was a printed screenshot, a text message, her number at the top, her name in the sender field, and a message she had never sent. The message read, asterisk, I can't keep doing this. I need some time away. Don't try to reach me for a while. Asterisk. It was dated 14 months ago. She was looking at a text message that she had not sent, but that was attributed to her, sent from a number that was exactly hers, to a contact she recognized as her closest friend, Iris. She stood in the office doorway and felt nothing for a moment. Just the specific stillness of a person who has seen something they do not yet have a category for. Then she started reading. There were 37 pages in the folder. Naomi counted them at the kitchen table that morning, sitting in the apartment with the city visible through the large windows behind her, the matte black phone with its cracked white case face down beside her, the manila folder open. 37 pages of printed screenshots, timestamps, financial statements, and one sheet she would return to 12 times before she understood what it was. The printed screenshots were of text messages. Some of them were real, messages she had actually sent to friends, to family, to colleagues, pulled from a system she did not know Ryan had access to. Some of them were not real. They were messages in her name, from her number, saying things she had never said. Asterisk, I've been struggling more than I let on. Asterisk, sent to her sister, 18 months ago. Asterisk, I think Ryan and I are in a bad place. I've been doing things I'm not proud of. Asterisk, sent to Iris, her closest friend, 11 months ago. Asterisk, I need to talk to you about something. I can't say it yet, but I think something is seriously wrong with me. Asterisk, sent to her therapist, 8 months ago. She sat with those 3 messages for a long time. She thought about her sister, who had been unusually gentle with her for the past year and a half, asking how she was doing in a way that carried more weight than normal, offering help she hadn't asked for. She thought about Iris, who had been slightly more distant since the spring. She thought about her therapist, who had, 8 months ago, shifted the nature of their sessions, asking more directly about her relationship, about her stability, about whether she was managing okay. She had assumed, in all 3 cases, that the people around her had simply noticed something in her, some stress she was broadcasting without realizing it. She had not occurred to her that the stress they were responding to had been delivered to them in her voice, from her number, before they had ever seen her face. The financial statements were the second set of documents. They showed joint accounts she had been unaware of, joint accounts in her name and Ryan's, opened over the preceding 22 months, into which funds had been moving through a series of transfers she had not authorized. $43,000. Not in one movement. In transfers of under $3,000 each. 14 transactions, each one timed to a period when Naomi had been traveling, for work, for a family visit, for the one long weekend she had taken alone in the mountains in the spring. 14 transfers. 14 windows of her absence. She sat at the kitchen table and looked at the financial statements and understood that she had not been absent on those trips. She had been alibied. The one sheet she kept returning to was at the back of the folder, under the rubber band. It was a list. Handwritten. Ryan's handwriting. It said, at the top, Project Completion Checklist. Below that, 7 items. She had read 6 of them by the time she heard the front door open. It was 9:47 a.m. Ryan was not supposed to be home until 6 p.m. She closed the folder. She slid it off the table and into her lap in the same motion, the rubber band back in place. The folder held flat against her thighs under the table. By the time Ryan appeared in the kitchen doorway, she was holding her phone, the matte black one with the cracked white case, and looking at the screen as though she had been there the entire morning. Ryan said, "Hey, forgot my laptop." He crossed the kitchen without looking at her directly. He went to the counter, picked up the laptop bag she had not noticed was there, and turned back toward the door. She said, "I thought you had the Marchetti presentation today." He said, "I do." The laptop was here. He said it easily. She watched his face. He was in his gray Henley and dark jeans, the same combination she had seen on him 100 mornings. He looked exactly like himself. She said, "You're back early." He said, just grabbing the laptop. "I'll be back at 6. He left. She listened to the front door close. She sat at the kitchen table for 90 seconds. Then she took the folder out from under her lap and looked at the 7th item on the handwritten checklist. She had only read 6. Item 7 said, *confirm exit date. October, *. This was October. She set the folder back on the table and looked at it for a long time. She thought about what the word exit meant on a list that also included items like mental health history documented and accounts liquid and travel documentation prepared. She thought about what it meant that this list was in a folder in a drawer she had never opened. She thought about the fact that the folder had been right there. Not hidden, not locked. In the bottom drawer of the desk in the room they never used. She picked up her phone. Not to call Ryan. Not to call Iris. She opened her banking app and looked at their primary joint account, the one she knew about, the one she had always known about, and saw that the balance was $4,212. It should have been significantly higher. She thought about the 14 transfers. She thought about how the money had been moved into accounts she didn't know existed. She thought about where the money in those accounts might have gone from there. She put the phone down. She picked it up again and took 3 photographs of the folder contents, each page, in order, the handwritten checklist last. Then she put the folder back in the drawer. She put the rubber band back the way she had found it. She put everything back exactly as it had been. She stood in the office for a moment. Then she went back to the kitchen, picked up her phone, and searched for the non-emergency contact number for the City Police Financial Crimes Division. She had never thought she would need that number. She dialed it at 10:04 a.m. The line rang twice. A woman answered. Naomi said, "My name is Naomi Chun. I think my husband is planning to disappear, and I need to talk to someone before tonight." She met with Detective Lena Graves at 1 p.m. at a coffee shop 6 blocks from the apartment. Not at the station. Detective Graves had suggested the coffee shop. She said it was standard practice when the subject of the concern was still in the shared environment. She was 48 years old, silver gray hair cropped close, pale blue eyes, dark navy blazer over a cream shirt. She had a leather portfolio and a small digital recorder she set on the table between them without asking. Naomi put her matte black cracked phone beside it and showed her the photographs. The detective looked at each one for a long time. She asked Naomi to walk her through the timeline. Naomi walked her through the timeline. All of it. The folder, the 37 pages, the fake text messages, the financial statements with 14 transfers totaling $43,000, the handwritten checklist, the 7 items, the 7th item, *confirm exit date. October, *. The detective wrote without looking up. When Naomi finished, Detective Graves was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Has your husband ever mentioned a person named Patrick Ellsworth?" Naomi said she had not heard that name. The detective nodded slowly. She said, "He came up in an unrelated case 14 months ago. Financial fraud. The charges didn't hold. Insufficient evidence, not enough documentation of authorization. He was the primary target. Your husband was peripheral." Naomi said, "Peripheral how?" Detective Graves said, "He was listed as a secondary beneficiary on one of the accounts. But there was no direct evidence linking him to the authorization chain. The case closed 6 months ago." Naomi was quiet. She said, "The fake messages to my friends and my therapist started during that 14-month window." Detective Graves looked at her. She said, "Yes, I noticed that. If someone in your life is systematically making you look unstable or unreliable to the people around you, please pay attention to that. That is the moment to ask why. Naomi said, "Why would he need to document my mental health instability?" The detective said, "In financial cases where one partner attempts to remove significant shared funds, the other partner is sometimes positioned as impaired, cognitively or emotionally. It creates a framework for disputing any future claims. If you later report the transfers, the documentation suggests you were already in a fragile state, that you're misremembering, misinterpreting." Naomi sat with that. She said, "He was building a case against me." The detective said, "It appears so." Naomi said, "While we were still married." The detective said, "Yes." She thought about the folder. She thought about the drawer. She thought about the fact that Ryan had kept the folder in the apartment, not at an office, not in a storage unit, in the room they never used. She thought about his confidence, the specific kind of confidence that comes not from certainty about outcomes, but from certainty about another person's behavior. He had been certain she would never open that drawer. She thought about how many times she had been in that room, how many times she had walked past that desk, how many times she had seen the drawer and not thought about it. He had been right, almost. She looked at the detective. She said, "What do I do tonight?" Detective Graves opened her portfolio. She said, "Here's what we're going to do." The plan was simple. Naomi went home. She cooked dinner. She set the table. She was at the stove when Ryan came through the door at 5:58 p.m., 2 minutes early, in the gray Henley and the dark jeans. He said, "Smells good." She said, "Pasta." They ate. She asked about his day. He described the Marchetti presentation. She listened. She was watching his hands. She did not know she was going to remember this dinner. His hands on the fork, the way he poured himself more water without asking if she wanted any, the specific quality of his attention that had always seemed like comfort and now seemed like something she could not name. She did not know she was going to remember it in the specific way you remember a last normal thing before it stops being normal. At 8:15 p.m., Ryan said he was going to bed early. He said he had an early flight. He had not mentioned a flight. She said, "Where are you going?" He said, "Chicago. Client thing." He said it the same way he had said everything for 4 years. "Easy." She said, "When did that come up?" He said, "This week. Shouldn't be more than 2 days." She said, "Okay." He kissed her on the cheek. He went to the bedroom. She listened to him move through the apartment, shower, drawers, closet. At 9:43 p.m., she texted Detective Graves. He mentioned an early flight. Chicago. 2 days. At 9:44 p.m., Detective Graves replied, "We know. Don't engage. Go to sleep normally. Officers are positioned. She put the matte black phone face down on the nightstand. The crack in the white case caught the lamplight. She lay in the bed beside Ryan. He was already asleep, or performing sleep well enough that she could not tell the difference. She thought about the folder. She thought about the 7th item. Confirm exit date. October. She thought about the fact that he had almost made it. She thought about what the detective had told her over the portfolio at the cafe. "We reviewed your husband's device activity through your wireless carrier. We had standing authorization from the Patrick Ellsworth case that extended to secondary associates. He accessed your message accounts through a spoofing application 22 times over 14 months. The application creates a second send pathway using your number as the origin point." Naomi had said, "So he wrote the messages from my phone." The detective said, "From a device that appeared to be your phone. The distinction is technical, not visible to recipients." Naomi said, "What about the accounts?" "He needed my signature on the joint accounts." Detective Graves had paused. She said, "He had your signature." Naomi had stared at her. The detective said, "There's a form in the folder. Page 26. It's a DocuSign confirmation for account registration. Timestamp from 16 months ago. The email address it was sent to, your email, shows an access from a secondary device at 3:47 a.m. You were in Phoenix at the time. A work trip." Naomi remembered Phoenix. She remembered being exhausted. She remembered falling asleep before 10 p.m. She did not remember signing anything. The detective said, "You didn't sign it. The access was remote. The signature was completed digitally by someone using your credentials." Naomi lay in the dark beside the man she had been married to for 4 years. She closed her eyes. At 6:14 a.m., she heard the front door open and close. At 6:16 a.m., her phone vibrated. A text from an unknown number. It said, asterisk, he's in custody. You can breathe, asterisk. She did. She did not stay in the apartment after that. She called her sister that morning from the kitchen, standing at the window with the city visible behind her the way it always was, the matte black phone warm in her hand. Her sister was there within the hour. They packed 2 bags. Naomi took the photographs she had taken of the folder, the 37 pages, the financial statements, the handwritten checklist, and sent them to Detective Graves' secure line. She took the framed photo from the shelf, the one with both of them. She put it in a bag. She wasn't sure why. She told herself she would decide later what to do with it. She was still deciding. In the weeks that followed, the picture Detective Graves assembled for her was this. Ryan had been involved in the Patrick Ellsworth fraud operation as a junior participant, not a principal. He had been listed on accounts, but had not been charged. When the investigation closed, he had understood 2 things: that he was not safe from future scrutiny, and that Naomi, who had no knowledge of any of it, was both his greatest liability and his greatest resource. His liability because her financial statements, her credibility, and her name were attached to his. His resource because she was stable, employed, trusted by everyone who knew her, and entirely unaware. He had spent 22 months converting her from a liability into a tool. The fake messages to her sister, to Iris, to her therapist were not personal. They were preparation. They were designed to install a narrative that could be deployed later. That Naomi had been struggling, had been unstable, had been the kind of person whose account of missing money and forged signatures might be questioned. The $43,000 was the first phase. Detective Graves told her, during a follow-up meeting, that they had reason to believe a second account existed, fully liquid, outside the country, that contained significantly more. Naomi asked how much. The detective said they were still calculating. She did not ask again. She has been in her sister's apartment for 6 weeks. She is in the process of untangling what is legally hers from what was taken, and it is the kind of process that moves like cold water, slow, steady, and colder than you expect the longer you're in it. She is called Iris. Iris picked up on the first ring. She has called her therapist. She has not called her sister's number, the number that received the first fake message 18 months ago, because that number was never the problem. She thinks about the drawer sometimes. The bottom drawer of the desk in the room they never used. She thinks about the fact that the folder was never hidden. It was stored by a man who was certain she would never look. She has thought about that certainty more than she has thought about anything else. Not what he did, but what he believed about her, and whether she is going to spend the rest of her life making sure he was wrong. She has decided the answer is yes. Have you ever discovered that someone who was supposed to be building a life with you is actually building a case against you? And the most frightening part was how long they had been doing it without you knowing. If someone in your life is systematically making you look unstable or unreliable to the people around you, please pay attention to that. That is the moment to ask why.